Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. This file is being recorded for the December 2022 edition of Socialism for All. It's an audiobook of Anti-Jewish Pogroms by Lenin from 1919. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and consider supporting on Patreon at patreon.com/socialismforall. There's a link to Patreon in the video description. So this was originally recorded on Gramophone at the end of March 1919, published here according to the Gramophone records. Organization of these speeches was accomplished by Centropachat, the central agency of the All-Russia Central Executive Committee for the Supply and Distribution of Periodicals between 1919 and 1921. 13 of Lenin's speeches were recorded. The source is Lenin's collected works, 4th English edition, Progress Publishers, Moscow, 1972. Translated by George Hanna, HTML markup and transcription by David Walters and Robert Cimbala, and it's in the public domain at the Lenin Internet Archive within the Marxists Internet Archive. Thanks as usual to MIA for hosting this and thousands of other free Marxist texts and resources. Please go check them out, marxists.org. So let's get into it. Anti-Semitism means spreading enmity toward the Jews. When the accursed Tsarist monarchy was living its last days, it tried to incite ignorant workers and peasants against the Jews. The Tsarist police, in alliance with the landowners and the capitalists, organized pogroms against the Jews. The landowners and capitalists tried to divert the hatred of the workers and peasants who were tortured by want against the Jews. In other countries, too, we often see the capitalists fomenting hatred against the Jews in order to blind the workers, to divert their attention from the real enemy of the working people, capital. Hatred toward the Jews persists only in those countries where slavery to the landowners and capitalists has created abysmal ignorance among the workers and peasants. Only the most ignorant and downtrodden people can believe the lies and slander that are spread about the Jews. This is a survival of ancient feudal times, when the priests burned heretics at the stake, when the peasants lived in slavery, and when the people were crushed and inarticulate. This ancient feudal ignorance is passing away. The eyes of the people are being opened. It is not the Jews who are the enemies of the working people. The enemies of the workers are the capitalists of all countries. Among the Jews, there are working people, and they form the majority. They are our brothers who, like us, are oppressed by capital. They are our comrades in the struggle for socialism. Among the Jews, there are kulaks, exploiters, and capitalists, just as there are among the Russians, and among people of all nations. The capitalists strive to sow and foment hatred between workers of different faiths, different nations, and different races. Those who do not work are kept in power by the power and strength of capital. Rich Jews, like rich Russians, and the rich in all countries, are in alliance to oppress, crush, rob, and disunite the workers. Shame on accursed Tsarism which tortured and persecuted the Jews. Shame on those who foment hatred toward the Jews, who foment hatred toward other nations. Long live the fraternal trust and fighting alliance of the workers of all nations in the struggle to overthrow capital. And that's the end of Lenin's speech, just so everybody's on the same page. A pogrom is basically an anti-Jewish riot. It comes from the Russian word for destruction, and during these riots there would be many fatalities, including children. These would periodically take place for over 100 years. In the late 1700s, the Russian Empire acquired territory which had substantial Jewish populations, which previously Russia did not really have. And the Jewish people were only allowed to live in certain territories within it, and it's there that the pogroms would take place. And of course, there is a much longer tradition of anti-Jewish persecution going back centuries in Europe, really being scapegoated for any kind of social problem that was going on. All right, so now let's turn to the actual gramophone recording of Lenin's speech, and we'll put the text on screen.
Антисемитизмом называется распространение вражды к евреям. Когда проклятая царская монархия доживала свое последнее время, она старалась натравить темных рабочих и крестьян на евреев. Царская полиция в союзе с помещиками и капиталистами устраивала еврейские погромы. Ненависть измученных нуждой рабочих и крестьян помещики и капиталисты старались направить на евреев. И в других странах приходится рабочих, чтобы отвлечь их взоры от настоящего врага трудящихся, от капитала. Вражда к евреям держится прочно только там, где кабала помещиков и капиталистов создала беспросветную темноту рабочих и крестьян. Только совсем темные, совсем забитые люди могут верить лжи и клевете, распространяемой против евреев. Это остатки старого, крепостного времени, когда попы заставляли сжигать еретиков на кострах, когда существовало рабство крестьян, когда народ был задавлен и безгласен. Эта старая крепостническая темнота проходит. Народ становится зрячим. Не евреи враги трудящих, враги рабочих, капиталисты всех стран. Среди евреев есть рабочие, труженики, их большинство. Они наши братья по угнетению капиталом, наши товарищи по борьбе за социализм. Среди евреев есть кулаки, эксплуататоры, капиталисты, как и среди русских, как и среди всех наций. Капиталисты стараются посеять и раздеть вражду между рабочими разной веры, разной нации, разной расы. На розни рабочих держится сила и власть капитала. Богатые евреи, как и богатые русские, как и богачи всех стран, в союзе друг с другом давят, гнетут, грабят, разъединяют рабочих. Позор проклятому царизму, мучившему и преследовавшему евреев. Позор тем, кто сеет вражду к евреям, кто сеет ненависть к другим нациям. Да здравствует братское доверие и боевой союз рабочих всех наций в борьбе за свержение капитала.